Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Today I quit my job of 6 years, effectively canceling my boss's vacation plans. Reddit, what stories of instant karma do you have? Part 2. I worked at Kmart in high school. It was a small store, so I worked everything. Electronics, stocking, cashier, you name it, I did it. I asked a woman and her son, about 12 or 13, if they needed help finding anything as I was out on the floor, and the kid immediately bees me out for annoying him. I ignore it and go about my business. Right after that, I get called to checkouts. As I'm working there, here comes the pair. The kid has gone all out back in the electronics area with some EA Sports titles and a GTA game. I'm checking them out when the age prompt comes up for the M-rated game. I decided to take a chance. I flip the game over and inform the mother that this game has been rated M for the following reasons, and read the list off the back of the case. There's an awkward silence, then she angrily informs me that the son said it was only a little violent. Kid wasn't able to get anything that day. Was working a job where I was doing 90 hours a week, but only getting paid for 40 to 45. Boss blew up on me over the phone, so I quit effective end of the day. I finished up all my work and he tried to sweet talk me into staying, but I held strong. Turns out, he had to work 18 hours a day for the next 2 weeks trying to find a replacement. Some additional details. I was being paid under the table, so that hurts a lot of my legal recourse. I was on a 90 business day, so 18 weeks trial period. If I stuck it out, I'd go on the books. For less money, as taxes and the like would now be taken out. I didn't start at 90 hours, but the work gradually crept up and the duties got piled on. I was a manager for a truck dispatching company, so I'd technically be management, but our agreement was hourly. I didn't D around at work browsing Reddit or playing flash games. I would literally sit down, start routing the guys and writing up reports, and then put out fires all day. I'd be lucky to leave at 5 p.m. most days. I'm supposed to be done by 3:30. I'm aware of how incredibly illegal this was on his part, but it was 6 months ago and one of my best friends who has kids works there. The boss is the type to just close up the shop and retire just to F everyone over, and he can absolutely afford to do this. Basically, it was S, but I learned a lot from it and it was a long time ago, so I don't give an F anymore. Was working for a certain snack food kitchen when it first came to my state. I was their primary producer, meaning my 8-hour shift every night made about 80% of the product for the stores the next day, and it was usually just me that was making the product and sending it down the other end for a team to decorate and pack. I was the one person who would take whatever shift they gave me and always did the shift that had all the work, the no time to chat shift. The shift before me, without fail, screwed around and made my shift a nightmare. I called management out on it, saying that if I left a shift without cleaning my equipment or making the yeast brews ready for them to start, I'd be sent packing. The shift manager just laughed at me and tried to blame me for the yeast brews, which were meant to be running for 4 hours before my shift started, but I had to make myself straight away. I refused to take the crap. She decided that what I really wanted was a week or 2 without shifts, effective the next night. I went home, typed up my notice of resignation, addressed to the full manager saying I couldn't work for such an incompetent shift manager and that I needed to work for a place that is willing to give me the commitment to shifts and pay that I was originally promised there. Less than 2 weeks later, I get a call. Our production line has completely died. You're the only one who knows how to fix it. Can't pay you cash, but can give you a few dozen of the product for it. I enjoyed those few dozen Krispy Kremes good. Couple of months later, see they've gone into administration. All stores closed and now only selling out of fuel stations. I know I didn't directly have a part in that, but felt good. I tried to explain to my company how they were breaking the law with one of their procedures. They didn't listen, said somebody up the line would have caught it. Later, illegally fired me whilst I was on FMLA leave. Was, statistically at least, their best employee at my position out of 500 people. They got fined $250K for the violations I brought up several times. I'm still unemployed, but I go hiking all day and love my life. Have enough saved up to last me until I do find work. F them. I worked for Goodwill quite a few years back as a supervisor because my mother and I had really fond memories of treasure hunting there, and I wanted to try and build up some management experience with a reputable company. I thought it would be my dream gig for a while, even though I knew it would be hard work. Except it was anything but. The manager was an alright lady, but her assistant manager was a tyrant. Every day she would threaten to fire the employees if they didn't do their work right. I took offense to this because, as a supervisor, I wanted my team to be in good spirits and wanted them to love coming into work and doing good things for the mission. I wanted this to be a great place to work. But because every single day they were being told they could be fired, morale was rock bottom. People were afraid for their jobs every day. I had a meeting with the manager and I said, "I don't want to step on any toes. I know you run a successful store and I really admire that. I would appreciate it if you could ask the assistant manager to tone down the firing threats because it makes my team nervous and I'd like to have a chance to improve productivity in my own way." She said she understood and I felt good about the conversation. The next day, she called me into her office where her and the assistant manager were both waiting for me. They asked me to lock the door. As soon as I did, I got the most hate-filled verbal lashing of my entire life. They started screaming at me. "You think you can turn us against each other? You are worthless. You just do your effing job and don't tell us how to do ours. Who do you think you are?" This went on for about 20 minutes. I'm a grown man and I nearly started bawling right there. I told them to take this S job and shove it. I was the only supervisor they had on a team that required at least 2. The manager and assistant manager were already working 60-hour weeks to make things work on a skeleton crew, and when I quit, they were going to be working 80 hours each with no weekends until they had at least a month to find someone else. They told me how much of a scumbag I was for not giving 2 weeks notice and ruining their month. I wasn't really concerned about it. Wasn't instant karma, but whatever. A couple years ago, I had a job for a company where I worked in the estimating department and would occasionally do some accounting work and anything else they needed me to do, all for minimum wage. I always did my work quickly and efficiently, knew more about my department than anyone else there, and even taught the guy they hired to run the estimating department after the previous manager left how to do his job. One day, a couple days after I totaled my car, I got done with my work and was waiting on a ride home. Normally, I would have just gone outside and smoked a cigarette until my ride got there, but this was a couple days after I had decided to quit smoking, so I decided to just wait in my cubicle instead. Another employee there, who was above me in the company who didn't like me at all, walked by and started berating me for sitting in my desk and not doing anything. I went on to explain to her that I had done all the work available for me for the day, wasn't on the clock, and was just waiting on my ride. She starts yelling at me about how there was trash in the break room to take out, which was never one of my responsibilities at my job because we had a cleaning company to do that. I told her I didn't think to do that because it wasn't part of my job, but I complied anyway. Well, apparently that was enough to get me fired. However, instead of doing it themselves, they decided to make my dad, who also worked at the company, fire me. They didn't say they were firing me, just that they didn't need me anymore. A couple months later, the other guy in estimating who I trained how to do his job quit without notice. That's when they realized no one there knew how to do his or my old jobs. So they called me up begging me to come teach them how to do everything he and I did there. I just replied by saying, "Oh no, you don't need me," and hung up. As the low man on the totem pole, I got to do all of the grunt labor and random tasks that required working on weekends and such, as a master engineer working in a 9-to-5 job, being paid less than a pizza delivery driver. Then my boss decided that I no longer got to comp time, leave early or whatever to get back some of the time spent working on weekends because I was salaried and it was part of the job. So when I quit to go get my PhD, they realized that I hadn't used any vacation time. The ultra penny pincher had to write me a check for 2 extra months worth of pay as I walked out the door. I worked as a database administrator for a community center for 1 summer in university. Basically, I created a database for them to track who was donating to them and how much they were donating, and who was volunteering at the center and for how many hours. Very simple work, and despite being the youngest person on staff by about 25 to 30 years, I got along well with all of my coworkers except for my immediate boss, who was a total B. The next spring, I was applying for jobs and emailed my old boss to ask for a letter of recommendation. Much to my surprise, she told me that she didn't write recommendation letters out of principle. I was pretty peed off about it because I was finding it very difficult to find a position, and not being able to count on my most recent employer for a reference was a definite blemish on my resume. However, in spite of this, I managed to land a decent job. Lo and behold, my old boss emails me on day 1 of my new job begging me to come in because she had somehow ignored all the warnings in the user documentation I wrote and moved some files around, rendering it impossible for her to access the database. She asked if I would come in, and I emailed her back and told her I already had a job and couldn't do it out of principle, effectively rendering my entire summer at the center a waste of time from their perspective. I was targeted for firing. It had nothing to do with my performance, everything to do with my manager's manager that took a disliking to me. I walked the line of perfection for about a month until I found another job. I handed in my 2 weeks notice. That was victory number 1. I stole about a half dozen of their employees and got them hired into my new company. That was victory number 2. Yes, Redditors, sometimes being in a right-to-work state works for the little guy. Non-complete clauses are almost completely unenforceable. I'd like to think that victory number 3 was the 30 or 40 employees they lost in the following year, but I can't claim direct responsibility for that. Thing is, when you have employees with high-demand skills like software engineering, you best treat them right. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and the comments. See you in the next video.